Welcome back, DNA Strand crew, to the newest episode of Stardom Situm Saturday, week 2, more specifically, Stardom Situm Saturday. I'm your host, TJ Blake. You can follow me over on Twitter at FFTJBlakeDNA. And we are joined back again for week 2 by my co-host on the From Whistle to Whistle podcast and the A-list contributor in the Discord and my co-host on the Dynasty DNA morning shows as well. We have Justin Tessier Teixeira. You can follow him over on Twitter at Teixeira91. You know, Teixeira, we were chatting in the Dynasty DNA group text last night. How pleased were we? Jordan Love delivering the goods. You got the jersey on right now. I love that.
I got it.
Delivering the goods. You know, we tried to tell everyone, hey, we're gonna hit tonight. And by the way, everybody, the chat is open. If you have a start sit question, drop that in there. If you are watching, we will answer it as we go along. But Jordan Love looked great. How about them Packers to share? They look tough, do they not?
They made me feel less disappointed that the Lions lost to them last week. That's how good they look. They made the Commanders look civilian, I think.
Yes, for sure. For sure. We already have Dill King here in the chat saying, yo, good luck this week. Same to you, my friend. If you have any questions, you want to chat ball, just type it there in the chat, and we will definitely open that up with you. Let's start them Saturday. You know, I mean, a lot of Dynasty shows don't do this, to share, to be honest, but I love doing this because at the nuts and bolts of everything in fantasy football is trying to help people to win. And that's our goal. That's the main thing we try to do as analysts. That's what always makes me feel good at the end of the year. When things go well, you give people good advice and you try to help them along the way. And start sits is a big part of that. So we will be continuing to do these every week. And if you guys haven't yet, join the Dynasty DNA Discord channel, absolutely free. Go to our Twitter page, Dynasty DNA _ at the top of the page. There's a link in the description. You click on that link. You could join for free. We'd love to have you. And that's where we do the Dynasty DNA morning shows every Sunday morning. We talk start sits. We talk trade advice. We talk all things Dynasty, all things NFL. We do the pick 'em. We do a little bit of a parlay as far as touchdowns, anytime touchdown scores, and it's a really good time. So you guys got to get over there, join the Dynasty DNA community. But here we go, Teixeira. We got to start this off red hot, and we're going to start with the quarterbacks here. And, you know, I'm going to go with the guy that I've been preaching about, you know, as far as like an offseason buy that I really liked, and I think that he's going to continue on the path that is going to lead to success. And I think, you know, week 1 was a little bit rocky, but you know, it just happens from time to time. But I'm going to go with Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys. And, you know, we were talking about this on the Triple Threat podcast. Wiz brought up the fact that he was almost dead last there in the quarterback rankings. I believe he was like 28, 27, maybe somewhere in that realm. That is very unlike Dak Prescott. Now, if you do have Dak Prescott and you didn't watch the Thursday night game to open up the season against the Philadelphia Eagles in week 1, you know, he was the victim of moving the ball pretty effectively against a good defense, and then just Javonte Williams getting lucky and poaching those touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. So that was a big thing that hurt Dak. It was a tough matchup. I do expect a bounce back here against the New York Giants, but let's be honest, this is a division game. I don't think they're just going to absolutely mop the floor with the Giants or anything like that. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but I do think that Dak's in for a rebound game. I think he's going to respond. I think he's going to do really well. I am a little bit concerned about this Giants pass rush, but secondary goes back there. I'm not too concerned with that. You got CD Lamb, you got George Pickens, Jake Ferguson. They got really sufficient receiving weapons here. So I'm predicting a Dak Prescott bounce back. And if I have him, I got to play him. I mean, there's no way around it, right? So, I mean, I think a lot of people rely on him, especially in that quarterback 2 setting in Superflex, but I do feel comfortable going back to him in a 1 quarterback league this week. And I'm going to put him on 22 points. I think he gets there against the Giants. I think that he does throw for 3 touchdowns this game. I'm going to get a little spicy here. I think Dak's really going to bounce back. This is an odd year. We talk about that all the time. So what do you think about the Dak Prescott play, Teixeira, after the disappointing week 1? Could you see a bounce back potentially coming for Dak in a game like this?
Yeah, I'll take the week 1 results as a grain of salt. They're playing the defending Super Bowl champs. They're at their home turf. So I think there was a little bit of growing pains coming out of the preseason with Dak. And I think this week just sets up for a perfect recipe for a get right game, a get better game. And I think the Giants will keep them competitive enough that it will require Dak to throw it. I'm predicting about 30, 35 times. I think they're going to not rely on Javonte Williams to ground and pound and run run the ball as well as he did against the Eagles last week. I think it's going to be. I'm projecting Dak to have a floor of 20 points this week. Hopefully that translates in a top 12 quarterback finish, but I'm going to go more closer to 13, 14 ish, depending on how I just the Giants are enigma. I don't know how like that defense is solid, don't get me wrong, but it's the offense that I'm concerned about. If they're not putting up points, it might not test to the Cowboys having to give up all their A game and throw everything at them in one game. And I think that Dak, I highly recommend in a super flex in a two quarterback league, at minimum, putting him in that second quarterback spot. And as far as quarterback in a single quarterback league, I mean, I don't hate rolling with him this week. I mean, I like him over some of the options that there is out there because he's got a positive matchup. And I think that if you do have to roll with him this week, I don't feel terrible about it. I think floor of 20 points will get you where you need to be to win your matchups if you have your rest of your roster built up around a solid floor from a quarterback like that.
Yeah, and I think that's just it, right? Like, I just know there's some teams out there in a one quarterback setting that might
Hmm.
only have, a guy that's kind of in the same level as Dak. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Hmm.
if you got them two options, I would go a route like that. Say, like, you have Trevor Lawrence and Dak. I think I start Dak this week, right? I know Trevor's got a good matchup against Cincinnati, but I just feel a little bit more comfortable with the sure-handedness of Dak as far as delivering consistent fantasy
Hmm.
results over the last couple years. I were to predict a bounce back, I would predict there. But yeah, if you have like a Josh Allen, Lamar, I mean, you're not going to
Oh,
start Dak over them. But if you have someone on the same level, I think that you would definitely consider that. And you're right. In Superflex leagues, I think it's a must play at that
hmm.
quarterback two spot this week. And Jokester's here. That is the Dill King. Jokester, happy to have you with us, man. Thank you for joining us this evening. And we're just excited football's back, man. We're going to continue to roll along here, but we're going to come over here to Tashara. Tashara, we're going to hop over here to you, your quarterback that you're going to be starting here in week 2.
My
Who is it?
quarterback week 2 must start. I mean, guys are just gonna throw it away. Last week was last week. It was not the best weather and not the best of circumstances for a game script, but I'm going with Drake May here. I think he's gonna absolutely cook and torch that Miami defense, and this is a defense that I'm targeting all year long until proven otherwise. And I have faith and I believe in Drake May to at least in a super flex league put up those quarterback 2 numbers this week. I got him scoring 23 points as his floor. Maybe a rushing touchdown stuck in there, but I don't want to take too much away from Travion Henderson or Ramondre Stevenson. But I think this could be a week where divisional matchups are very contested. They're very spicy, so to speak. And I think that Drake May will with a week under his belt do a lot better than he did in week 1 and kind of show that week 1's performance was a little fluky than it was fact. So I'm rolling confidently Drake May in that quarterback 2 spot in the super flex. And I mean, I think I would pick him over Dak in a quarterback 1 league if I have both of those guys and I had to choose before, just because I like the rushing upside. I mean, I do think they both have the floor of 20 points, but with the mobility of Drake May, I like the odds of getting points in that department too.
So let me ask you this, Tashara. I want to know,
Mhm.
curiosity wise, like, is this really? I mean, look, we all kind of really like Drake May, right? Don't hear what we're not saying. I mean, he was a guy that we're all hoping, big, expecting big things from, especially Bob and Ty. I know them two have really been the standard bearers for Drake May. We've all liked them, but them two really have stepped out in front of the curtain and took a bow on that, Ty and Bob. So they're hoping that really comes through. But do you think that is it the Miami? Is it just Miami's that bad? Is that what really
Mhm, mhm. I
entices you
wanna
here?
take advantage of that defense. If I saw what I saw with Daniel Jones against that defense, I have plenty of faith that Drake May can emulate and do relatively the same or similar as far as scoring. Because he's got the weapons. I like Keyshawn Boutte is a sleeper flex pick played this week to get a handful of receptions. I think Diggs will have a better game, and I think Hunter Henry in the red zone is going to cook too. I can see him having a really decent day. I think overall that Drake May's potential against this defense is higher than what it was last week against the Raiders. Even though the Raiders don't have a great defense themselves, but I just think that it's all pointing in the favor of like the Dolphins are a team to pick on this year. It sucks because you hate having those teams where you can just like abuse and pick on stuff, but when you got juicy matchups like this, you gotta take advantage of them and use the assets you have in fantasy against them.
Yeah, 100%. And like if you have Drake May, right, especially in
Mhm.
Superflex, you got to rely on him at some points. Like, I mean, the chickens are going to come home to roost. So, I mean, like right now, look, I mean, yes, you're right to share. We would like to have seen a little bit more last week, but this offense is still developing, still growing. And, I give Wiz credit. Now, Wiz kind of compared him maybe to like a little bit of a Ryan Tannehill-ish type
Ooh.
player, but maybe with a little bit more of a ceiling. I kind of thought that was really wise on his part and look, I mean, there's still a ceiling there, like Wiz said. Don't get me wrong. I think that maybe he could even surpass that, but I think at worst, that's what you're getting. So, and if he can't do it against this Miami defense,
Ooh.
let me just say this: I think you're really in for tough sledding this year. Now, I'm not going to give up on Drake May. I mean, unless it gets super super bad, and I really see some things that I don't like. But I mean, if he really doesn't produce a higher end finish let's say even a top 12 finish against Miami this week, then it's like, okay, you got to really level out your expectations, right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
unfortunate, but that's definitely something, yeah, something you got to keep in mind. But I do like to play this week to share because you got to fire him up. You have to against this team. And if you're ever going to do it, now's the time to do it. But let's hop over here to me now for the running back start this week. And, this game I like a lot, especially for running backs. And I got to go and give the guy the same nod that we seen last week. I mean, kind of having a nice bounce back. A lot of people wrote him off for dead. And I said, take that turd and flush it down the toilet. It's going to be Travis Etienne going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, I mean, everyone was kind of wondering, is it going to be Etienne? Is it going to be Bigsby? Is it going to be maybe some of these rookies? Look, I think Liam Cohen and the Jacksonville Jaguars sent a message here early on. I do agree with, I think Wiz or Mike said it, on the one show. No, I believe it was Bob that did Jacksonville really smokescreen everybody and was shadow boxing this and like, yeah, okay, we ain't really sure because 62% of the snaps ETM was out there last week, carried the ball 16 times, 3 targets. I mean, picked up 41% of the Jaguars scrimmage yards. Very impressive. 71-yard run he broke off. Kind of looking a little bit like the old Travis Etienne, right? A little bit of explosion. And that's what we need from him. We need to see a little bit of explosiveness. We need to see a little bit of a juice popping out from him. And you can't not go back to him this week. You have to go back to him. I mean, after what we've seen, look, Carolina's defense is not good. I get it, but it's better than Cincinnati's in my opinion. There is at least every bit as good as Cincinnati's. So, Cincinnati's defense is a defense we all like to pick on. We always say about it. Look, I think that this is a big, big opportunity here for Travis Etienne to put up really good back-to-back fantasy weeks. I think he does it again. Do I think he sets the world on fire? No, maybe not, but I can see a 16, 17-point game coming from Travis Etienne here again this week, going up against the lowly Cincinnati Bengal defense. And I expect it. And I do think this is going to be a little bit high scoring. And I don't know, man. The Bengals just didn't look good against the Browns. Now the Browns always play them tough, but they're usually notorious as well. Cincinnati coming out of the box slow. I know this division. That's just seems to be their calling card. The Steelers are kind of like that too. So wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville even maybe kept this semi closer than what people think. But go ahead and give me Travis Etienne for about that 16 to 18 point range. I think he gets there safely. And I love the floor this week. And I think the ceiling opportunity is really there. Do you agree with me,
Absolutely.
Share?
I think it's still going to be the ETN show this week against the Bengals. If there's one thing that they've proven to us is that their run defense is definitely suspect and their defense against pass catching running back specifically. And I think that's where ETN could thrive this week if they keep Spatial Tootin on the sidelines and watching him take over downs. I think this is, I don't want to use the term shootout loosely, but I feel like this could be a lot of offenses with high-powered weapons being able to take care of suspect defenses. I think that the Bengals will get their shots in early, but I think the Jaguars can counterpunch very well, and I think they're down around the goal line if they get close, or ETN is able, as we saw last week, bust one, and I think it just takes one play to salvage him being in your lineup. If he can just hit it like a 7, 8 point play on one play like he did last week, I think he's more than capable against this Bengals defense, and I like him staying hot and staying fluid. I like how he doesn't have to worry about Tank Bigsby coming up behind him now that he's off to Philadelphia, and he can just play his role, do his thing, and Trevor Lawrence can take advantage of him in the backfield and rely on him to take the pressure off in case if he's having once again another bad day.
So let me ask this to Shara. I need to know, and I do think that you like him. Are you more of a LaQuint Allen man, or are you more of a Bashaw Tootin man?
That's a great question. I love it because I want to premise the fact I like them in the areas that they succeed in. Like I like the idea of the change of pace back of LaQuint Allen. I prefer him. I like him the best out of those three backs. But aside from my personal liking him, I think logically speaking, I think Bashal Tutin is the better back still, but not quite there yet. Is Travis Etienne? I think in that pecking order, it's still Etienne, Tootin, LaQuint Allen, but I like what each of them brings to the table in the backfield there that Jaguars can utilize differently and keep things fresh and those defenses on their toes because you never know who's going to hit them with what. And I think hopefully LaQuint Allen now gets a little bit more showcasing since Tank Bigsby's out of town, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to try to pick him up off waiver wires this week or dropping fab on him. He's definitely a guy that I took advantage of stashing him in my taxi spots everywhere I could in leagues just to see how this situation blooms out. Because if ETN has his coming out party this year and decides to move on to greener pastures at the end of the season, or they trade him some point in the year, I think the Bayshall Tootin Allen show can be a promising venture for people pursuing as far as fantasy assets go. And I think that people should definitely keep LaQuint Allen on their radar as possible bye week fill-in or injury handcuffs. But in that backfield, it's still Bayshall Tunes the handcuff I want to have to ETN, even though I like the prospect of what Allen can bring to that offense.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you explained that really nicely to Shara. Like, look, I'm more of a Tootin man, like as far as what I've seen. And you're right. I think there's a lot more high end explosive upside as far as talent goes with Tootin. But you know, Allen's that guy, like, see, that's why like I say, like, and you gotta be careful. Like, I think he is a
Hmm.
great NFL asset. I think he's gonna do very well as far as what the Jacksonville Jaguars want him to do. But like, where is his ceiling for fantasy, right? Like that's kind of where like we seen Denata Foreman, you know, guys like that, maybe they'll pop off and have a really good game where they get 25 carries every once in a while and 100 yards and a touchdown, right? Like I could see LaQuint Allen, like, but
Hmm.
that's like his ceiling. Like Tootin is a guy that he could break off a couple huge runs, you know, catch a couple little dump offs and get free. I mean, just a little bit more of a ceiling to me. But I will say this: you're absolutely right. If LaQuint Allen is out there, guys, and you have Travis Etienne and you have room on your roster, just pick him up, right? Especially in a dynasty league, you can throw them on your taxi team and just forget about them, and you never know. I mean, at the same token, maybe they use them, maybe they don't. But if there are injuries, could become more and more valuable. And even if you don't want to keep them, you can flip
Hmm.
them for draft capital. So that's never a bad move. But to share, we're going to hop back over to you for the running back start you have for us for week 2. Who is it?
Oh, it's one of my guys, TJ. I'm in the Brees Hall club. I'm starting him this week. I'm firing him up. In the last 3 of the 4 matchups that he's had against the Buffalo Bills, he's scored double-digit points and a floor of 15.5 fantasy points per game in those matchups against the Bills. I like that in my running back 2, the running back 1 spot is having that floor of 15, 16 points. And he's not a stranger to busting off 100-yard games against the Bills too, because a year ago he had 169 total yards against these Buffalo Bills. And we saw what Derrick Henry, he's the king, but we saw what he was able to do against this Buffalo Bills defense. And he was able to run through and all over them. And I don't think Bryce Young is going to have much trouble in the out of the backfield pass catching for the Jets. And Justin Fields relying upon him in that sort of area in case if it starts to break down the run game. But I think he's a sneaky play this week. I mean, the matchup doesn't look good on paper. You're playing the Bills, but you got to also factor in the fact if you want to stay in this game, you have to put up points and you got to put the ball in your playmakers' hands. And Brees Hall is the perennial point scorer in that offense, I feel, this week over Justin Fields or Garrett Wilson. I feel like if they keep it close, they're going to want to lean on that run game between him and Braylon Allen. And I can see him busting off a big one this week and paying dividends and having that floor of 15, 16 points. And I think his ceiling could be as high as 20. And as one of your starting running backs, I'm fine with that this week. I mean, sometimes your superstars don't have huge explosive ceiling games, but at the same time, you want them to have that confidence to be able to have that consistency of hitting those double digits and hitting those floors that you believe in them at. And I think that Brees Hall is more than capable of doing that against this Bills defense.
Let me just do this for you, Tashara. Because everybody knows how I feel about Brees Hall. And you're absolutely right. Like, you look at this on paper, sure, it's a little bit scary. But look, I've always been I've always been saying on this show, my preference is your best players have to be your best players, right? Like, you can get cute, you can get cheeky sometimes and try to sit them down. And sometimes it warrants it, right? If we see multiple weeks, you want to maybe take a break from it. I don't ever blame anybody for that in a tough matchup or something like that. But we just seen Brees Hall look kingly. Like you said, the king is Derrick Henry. We won't get too far of ourselves, but he is definitely in the royal family as far as I'm concerned, because he looked really good. And you're absolutely right. Like, everyone was predicting this and that. We've seen Brees Hall got a lot of sit questions last week about Brees Hall. It was kind of upsetting me because it's like, man, we just believe in this player so much. And absolutely did very good against the Steelers defense. But I will say the Steelers defense is a little old, a little overrated. I can tell you that. I know better from anyone. I know this team, but you got to take advantage right about the Buffalo Bills. Like, he usually performs against them. And I'm going right back to him this week. From what I understand, Brees Hall's favorite restaurant is Buffalo Wild Wings. That's what I hear. So he's going to be feasting some more there in Buffalo this week. Give me some Brees Hall. And I think you have to go back to him. I'm with you on that, Tashara. How many points you put Brees Hall on? I'm just curious.
I have 19, and I think a good chunk of that is coming out of the passing game. I think he could have 6 or 7 receptions, probably about between 50, 60 yards, and I think he gets in the end zone. Like, he busts one. I feel that he can break one and catch the Bills sleeping if they get too complacent, which we saw the Bills slow walking through the first half of last week's game, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that they can have one of that. Now, I'm not saying that the Bills are going to get boat walked or anything and get embarrassed by the Jets, but I just still think that the Jets of old, they need to take this Jet regime a little bit more with legitimacy than to just write them off. Because I feel we saw them. I mean, it's the Steelers defense, and you have your opinion about them, but like the fact that they're still able to put 30 points up on another team's defense in their first game under a new regime kind of shows that they are more than capable of being fantasy relevant players, and they can put up points when needed.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I like that call. I will go back to Brees Hall as well. Jack Gray says here, these fellas putting in work, hit that like button. Thank you, man. We greatly appreciate that. And let me just say this. We got the greatest listeners, supporters out there, and we love doing it. We're going to continue bringing it to you. We're going to up the ante. We're all in, and we're going to be with you guys every step of the way. And again, guys, that chat's open. You want to talk any players, it's there. If you are listening, we'd love to talk to you about it. But here we go to share into the wide receivers. Coming back to me here, my wide receiver that I'm going to be starting in week 2, and somewhere right now in the state of Indiana, there in the state of Alaska, there are 2 people with big smiles on their face because I'm not going to be deterred. I'm not going to be scared, and I'm not going to back off. Give me Ricky Pearsall going up against the New Orleans Saints. Now, I know what everyone's saying. TJ, you're going to start Ricky Pearsall. They don't have Brock Purdy. Yes, I understand that. But here's the thing, right? Coming off of what we've seen last week, this guy did very well. I mean, he was getting separation, obviously. He was making plays. Lots of times what I like to see when I'm sitting there seeing them sleeper alerts, we got Ricky Pearsall, 30-yard catch, 25-yard catch. Like, you're making noise, right? And like, he was able to get that separation against a decently built Seattle defense. And I liked what I see. Now, I know there's no Brock Purdy, but you got to remember, there's still Kyle Shanahan. And as long as there's Kyle Shanahan, I feel okay. I feel comfortable. We talk about Kevin O'Connell. Kyle Shanahan's another guy. He can make some of these guys look better than they are. Now, Mac Jones has been there. He's been there through the training camp. He's been there through the preseason. And this is the New Orleans Saints, right? Like, if it was another team, I might be like, but you just can't get scared off. Like I'm a big believer in momentum, like in
Mhm.
anything, in life, fantasy football, whatever. Ricky Pearsall has momentum right now. I mean, we seen it last week. And as our big friend, big culture Bob likes to say, if there is some kind of elixir to heal San Francisco's wounds right now, it is the New Orleans Saints. That's exactly what he said. So I have to agree with him. Look, and if he comes out and lays an egg, okay, maybe you want to hold the horses. You want to hold the horses back until Purdy gets back into the fold. I understand that. But I'm just not going to not go back to him after what we've seen this week. And the Saints do not scare me whatsoever on how you feel about this, Teixeira. Now, let me be honest with you guys, right? Like, I mean, he's not going to be my wide receiver one, but if you're looking for a flex play, you're looking for a wide receiver two this week, I feel confident enough to maybe give him a shot at that position on my team. Where are you at with that, Teixeira? Are you on board
I
with me
am
there?
right there with you, TJ. I like that it's kind of runs around the premise of what I said earlier with the Patriots against the Dolphins. You just got to play those guys against bad teams and take advantage of those matchups. And by circumstances, he's like the last one standing in that wide receiver room. We don't know if Jennings is going to be good to go this week. I hear he's day to day, but I'm not confident usually in rolling out players coming off injuries to come have an explosive boom game and walk right into that offense and being a top option, especially with the Mac Jones, who's going to be trying to probably play a little bit more conservatively at first. And I think that the Saints can still keep this game honest and keep it close. I'm not thinking they're going to be exact pushovers, and that will still lend to the 49ers having to throw the football. And I think Pearsall is going to be the main beneficiary of that circumstance. And I think he can get a nice rapport going with Mac Jones that he could have a higher ceiling beyond week 2 with all these other injuries they're battling and the options they have to throw to. And I like your point that you made about just a flex option or wide receiver too, because sometimes, is like we like to say in our lineups, we want to have those big swing plays, those big home run hitters that, really swing our matchups. But sometimes lineups are built on the premises you've got to have these concrete, solid, consistent guys providing at least enough points in your lineup that you can keep afloat and not have to be as tilted when things go wrong because I see Pearsall getting about 13, 14 points this week and about 6 receptions because I think the 49ers and Shanahan will have a premise of wanting to see what the Cardinals did to the Saints last week by utilizing those receiving options. And Marvin Harrison Jr. had a day with them against that secondary. And I think that Pearsall is more than capable of not obviously emulating what Marvin Harrison Jr. did, but at least having enough success against the Saints in this matchup that it warrants him being in that spot in your lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the 14-point range. Like, I definitely, that's kind of where I'm comfortable as well. Like I said, that 14 to 16 range, I think that's really good. And for a flex play, that's definitely what you're hunting for. Like, we always hope for more, but if you can get that, I feel really good about maybe where you're going to be this week. So, yes, I'm with you to share. Let's stick with Ricky Pearsall at least one more week and see what happens with this 49ers offense without Brock Purdy. Last point I'm going to make. Mac Jones, everyone likes to
Mhm.
make fun of him, right? I mean, he's not a great NFL asset. We understand that, but who was the guy that was keeping Brian Thomas relevant last
Exactly.
year, right? Like, I mean, just because he's not a great NFL asset doesn't mean he can't keep some of these fantasy assets in the receiving game useful. So I do think that that is very important to remember. Now we do
Oh,
got a
I love it.
question here from curly headed fox. We have here.
Oh, I
Okay,
love the name.
pick
Very
two.
clever, dude.
Yeah. Pick two, half PPR, Ridley, Pickens, or Butte. You got to pick two of those, Teixeira. I will let you have the first crack at it. Half point now. Remember, half
Mhm.
point PPR, Ridley, Pickens, Butte.
I'm going from one end of it being a splash play and one end of it to being a floor safe play. And I got Pickens as the splash play one. I think he can pop a big reception or a big TD pass from Dak this weekend. And I think that Butte is a good, probably safer floor pick because he's going to get peppered with targets by Drake May. So those are the two. I'm not against Ridley. I'm just fading him because I think ki like, it's that Rams defense is not a pushover, and I think that Ridley and Cam Ward are still gonna struggle this week putting up fantasy numbers that are be higher, in my opinion, than a Pickens or a Booty. I don't know if Ridley hits double digits this week, where I can easily see Pickens doing that off one play, and I can see Booty doing it if he gets enough of the targets and maybe finds his way into the end zone. But it's closer than what some people might think, because I think that Cam Ward, with another week of football under his belt, that he could maybe, because I'm just trusting his ability and his talent to maybe make something happen for Ridley. But I'd rather have like a safe play and a variance play than playing like two variance players. And then if they both bust, then I'm really at kind of a loss there in your lineups if both your wide receivers goose or close to
Yeah,
goose.
I'm with you on that, Teixeira. Give me Pickens and Booty as well. And honestly, like you said it, Drake May targets the heck out of Keyshawn
Hmm.
Boutte. Like I don't know what it is. Like there's just a nice comfort level there between the two. And what we seen last week was a little disturbing with Calvin Ridley and Cam
Hmm.
Ward, right? Like you can try to cut this any way you want to cut it. It just didn't look good. It might still take some time. And it's another tough matchup.
Hmm.
So I do think I will risk Boutte as well. I think the floor could be very similar, but I still think there is a better ceiling with Boutte. So give me Pickens and Boutte. I'm with you on that, Teixeira. And Jack says at least we know that Mac Jones targeted BTJ 11.6
Oh.
times a game from weeks 13 to 18. Absolutely. You can ask Teixeira. Brian Thomas, I wrote the biography last year.
Hmm.
It was spectacular. So we just we know Mac Jones can do it. I think he can still do it with Ricky Pearsall. Remember, Kittle's out. There's a lot of targets there for a guy like Ricky Pearsall. But Teixeira, let's come back to you. Wide receiver, you're going to be starting here for us in week 2. Who gets the nod for you?
I'm going for the revenge game narrative, and I'm going for a big boom game here. I think he's still going to put up wide receiver 2 numbers with low wide receiver 1 upside, and I'm going to put my faith in DK Metcalf this week. I think Rodgers is be it not going to be throwing multiple touchdowns or having a big a game as he does, but I think he's going to reinforce the fact that DK is his alpha in that offense, and he's gonna, if they get close in the red zone, I feel like he's going to be a big target for him. And I think they're going to cater to that narrative and want to get him the ball and get him fed, so he's feeling good out of week 2 into their week 3 matchup. And I like the momentum. I like what they were doing in week 1 against the Jets, being able to throw the ball as well as he did. Now, if that's Aaron Rodgers' ceiling, that's great. I'll take that as his ceiling, the 3 touchdowns and that many yards. But if a floor, I think that at least Aaron Rodgers can get him of probably a handful of targets and something in the end zone. I'm confident that they'll be able to do that and get that another week of rapport and cohesion and meshing together that warrants putting him in my lineup. And I think that I'm not threatened by Calvin Austin or any of those tight ends in that offense to siphon targets away from him and opportunities. And if you need a guy that you're pondering, like lower in your lineup between flex and wide receiver 2, I feel more comfortable throwing a DK Metcalf in there than a lot of other wide receivers in that spot.
I love it. I like the Metcalf call. A little like, let me say this. I was a little pessimistic right to start the
Mhm.
season because, look, I know how the Steelers offense is, and I'm still not going to put total trust on it the long term, but I like it this week, Teixeira. And you know what? I really like what you said, revenge game. Like, DK
Mhm.
Metcalf strikes me as the kind of guy that this means something to. Like some guys are just like, yeah, what, but like DK Metcalf reminds me of someone that's going to be on a mission this week. And you are right. What we've seen from Aaron Rodgers was very encouraging. My only worry this week, the only worry I have with a DK Metcalf, with maybe a Jonnu Smith, people like that, like, can the Steelers keep Aaron Rodgers
Oh,
up?
yes.
As long as they can keep him upright, I feel really good about it. So I like the DK Metcalf call. And like I said, I think the biggest point is what the point you mentioned, the revenge game. I think it means something to Metcalf, and I think that he's going to rock and roll. So I like that call. And I just want to know how many points you think it's going to be to share this week. How many for DK? You got me really happy
I
inside.
think I'm gonna go with his jersey number. I'm gonna go with 14 for sure as the solid floor, and I think as high as 22. I think he can get
Does he find the paint?
I think it'll take a touchdown, and I think it'll take between 8 to 10 receptions. I think his I don't know if I'm willing to be brave enough to put it in the wide receiver parlay this week, but I think it'll take about 8 to 10 receptions and about 70, 80 yards and a touchdown will get him there.
Okay. So, just so everyone knows, if you're hearing it in the background, there is a celebration. It's the homecoming here in
Ooh.
Strattonville, PA, my hometown. Let me just say this. I didn't know if it was for that or if it was for to share with a lot of these great calls. I've been really licking my chops. I really like it to share. And I know Ty would be fired up right now. You bringing up DK and Aaron Rodgers. He's really going to be happy. But let me say this great info. Thanks. No problem, curly headed
Yeah,
Fox.
you're
We
welcome.
appreciate you. I mean, that's been awesome. Yeah, we love having everyone here. We love talking football. It's great having great friends here, and we're just happy it's back. And any question, anytime, we love chatting it. And you guys have been awesome. We really appreciate that. So let's go into the tight ends. I want to talk about a tight end that I'm going to pair with a guy that I started at the quarterback spot because it's a guy that I've predicted to be a little bit better this season. It's going to be Jake Ferguson, tight end, Dallas
Ooh.
Cowboys, going up against the Giants. Now, let me just say this. I watched that game against the Eagles, and I know how Dak Prescott likes to play football. He targets the tight end like crazy. And I think that's going to continue. I seen a lot of passes to Ferguson in that Eagles game. They just didn't connect. Things didn't go right. There was a touchdown that if the Eagles secondary really didn't hit him the way they hit him, being Ferguson, that was probably going to be a touchdown. Like Dak was looking for him down there. And, I just think this is going to be based off volume. Again, I like this matchup going against the New York Giants. And you know how it is. I mean, lots of times you're streaming for touchdowns if you don't have one of these top guys. I really like the high percentile of a Jake Ferguson touchdown this week. And we've seen
Ooh.
what Zach Ertz did week 1 against the Giants as well. You got to keep that in the back of your mind. But I'm going to say there's a better than 60% chance, I think, that Jake Ferguson scores a touchdown in this game. So if you have him, especially in tight end premium leagues, I have him in a lot of tight end premium leagues, and like I have some other guys, some top tier players like Brock Bowers. Like I'm still throwing Jake Ferguson in my flex, especially in tight end premium. So if he is there, if you have him, I'm there for it, man. Give me Jake
I
Ferguson
love it.
this
I
week.
love that pick.
What do you think about that? I'm going to say one touchdown, like we talked. I'm going to say 15 points for Jake Ferguson. What do you think
I
about
love
that,
it. I love
Teixeira?
it because I saw a lot of what you saw in that Eagles game, and I think that Dak Prescott is going to get his tight end going and get him on the right course, and provide some consistency as his number 2 option in the receiving game. Like I said with the Pickens, that he could be the splash play, but if he isn't looking CeeDee Lamb's way, if he's looking for a safety blanket or a reserve, target to throw to, I think Jake Ferguson's going to take advantage of a lot of low A dot and around the line of scrimmage uh, plays that when the play starts to break down, he could be a great safety valve for Dak and bail him out. And he could be the beneficiary of that because he's a good yards after the catch kind of tight end too. Kind of like what we saw Tucker Kraft last like in the Packers. He's able to find those soft spots in the zone. And I think Jake Ferguson's got good enough hands where he can find himself in the end zone too and break one on one of these behind one of these linebackers of the Giants.
Yeah, just like I like that description too. Like very underrated, underthought athlete.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I'm not saying he's like one of these premier guys, but like I think so many people just don't give him enough respect in that part of his game.
Hmm.
Like I think he's good enough to get there. And you're right. I think I see a lot of little dump offs and I see a touchdown. I'm gonna say a touchdown for Jake Ferguson. I think it's gonna be really good this week. I love that stack between him and Dak this week. I think it's gonna go very well. But we got to go over to you to share the tight end that you're going to be starting for us in week 2.
It's
Who
gonna
is
be
it
a
going to
guy who
be?
really disappointed for us last week. We had high hopes for, and we thought it was gonna be the redemption tour starting off hot, and it didn't happen to be the case there. And I'm gonna go with the guy who had 1 target with 1 catch for 5 yards last week, and that's not gonna cut it. That's not gonna be a good feeling, a warm fuzzy feeling in our hearts when we want to throw him out there in week 2. But he's playing against the Cleveland Browns. It's gonna be Mark Andrews. I think last week was the Zay Flowers show. He was able to ball out and get his and take advantage of a lot of what the defense was given with the Bills. And I think that the tight ends are going to be more incorporated with Lamar Jackson this week. There'll be a more run heavy, short pass game. And I think that Mark Andrews could be a beneficiary of that. And I think they want to get him going. I think they want to get him in a groove early and get him fired up because division games are tough and hard, and I think that Mark Andrews, if I recall, has played against these Browns very well in his history. He's been a really a good killer against the Browns in his matchups against them, and I think that Lamar will throw the ball a little bit more accurately around the line of scrimmage and not. I think last week called for the Zay Flowers game, and I like that call for it because of just how splashy they probably needed to be to keep up with that Bills offense. I don't see them having to keep up with the Browns offense, and I feel like they can play a little bit more conservatively around the line of scrimmage. And I think that Mark Andrews was going to have a not necessarily a breakout game, but he's going to have like a little bit of like a redeeming game where it's just like makes us feel a little bit comfortable throwing him out there. I don't know if he falls in the end zone, but I can see him having 4 to 6 yards and about 4 to 6 receptions and about 60 to 70 yards. Just kind of like a middle of the pack, low end tight end one kind of a day. And I think that'll be good enough for our lineups to help provide like a floor for you if you have better, more high explosive upside plays in your lineups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you here, Tashera. And you know what I love what you said is the fact that he does play very well against the
Mhm.
Cleveland Browns. Like, and here's the thing about start six, guys. I mean, we love to have the data about 4 to 5 weeks in.
Mhm.
We start to see trends, we start to see patterns, and it does get a little bit easier for us, especially as analysts that watch this all the time. But right now, you don't have as much to go on, but you go by history, you go by things that happened in the past. Mark Andrews has played them very well, and you're right. Like, I think that you explained that very well with Zay Flowers. I think so many people, you got to remember, guys, last year it was Isaiah Likely. I
Mhm.
remember after week one, Isaiah Likely took over the job. Mark Andrews is done. He's toast. There's no other receiving option in Baltimore but Isaiah Likely. Then what happened? Like, they are a team that will spread the wealth around. Mark Andrews is still Mark Andrews. And if you got him, you have to play him, especially in certain situations. And given the fact that he has beat up and bullied the Browns in the past, I will bank on him doing that again. That's a good play to share. I'd like that. We have another question
Ooh.
here. Curly Headed Fox says, I picked up Jawan Johnson on the waivers because
Mhm.
I have Brock Bowers. How long should I wait before pulling the trigger on starting Johnson with Bowers playing 10 o'clock on Monday night? Let me say this. I hate that, man. I feel for you. I mean, like, us as fans, like, I mean, it is kind of fun getting 2 games on Monday night, but fantasy football, that makes it very, very rough as far as fantasy managers go. But I will say this: the Saints play at 1 o'clock. Unfortunately, too bad they didn't play at like 4:15 or a little bit later or something like that. But I would just wait until like that 12:30, 12:45 range, like the very last minute. I'd be looking up everything I could online about Jawan Johnson and Brock Bowers, like just keeping everything in sight, keeping everything in mind. Just make sure you know before you know, because sometimes they will say, okay, he's likely to play. Even if, and I'm going to say this, even if they say it's looking like it's likely that Bowers is going to play, I will gamble and wait on Bowers at that point. But if it's looking bad, then you can make the call, right? But like if you want to wait out a little bit, I think I would wait it out, but I would hold on to at least that 12:30, 12:45 range before I made that decision. If you haven't heard anything encouraging on Bowers and then you want to make the switch, can't blame you because you don't want to get a goose egg. I mean, I've been there. I know how that is. Tashera, how do you feel about this? I mean, do you think that 12:30, 12:45 range is kind of where you would be at because the Saints kick off at one
Yeah, the
o'clock?
way I look at it is more through an objective lens. Is like Brock Bowers is one of those guys where you don't want to miss out on him if he does play because he's going to be a huge pivotal piece in your lineup to give that high ceiling plays and could really ball out against the Chargers this week. And I think that Juwan Johnson is more of a second tier tight end now that is play if you absolutely need to. And I would build my lineup this week catering around the fact that if Bowers doesn't play, I have enough ceiling or high upside players that would justify me feeling comfortable sitting him and having to play Juwan Johnson because I won't feel comfortable playing Juwan Johnson if I have some higher upside players on my bench and knowing that I'm going to get some floor points out of Juwan Johnson or a lower ceiling game where Brock Bowers is your high ceiling play. And if you feel like you have the projections in your matchup that you're going to win, I think I likely take the road of trying to wait the absolute last minute and start Brock Bowers. And then if it's more closer, you might be projected not to win this week. I lean just going with Juwan Johnson, the healthy starting option. That way, you're not going to at some point have to make a hard pivot if Brock Bowers isn't able to go, but you're still able to play somebody that gives you some sort of points and you can salvage your day out of. I think this question specifically is very catered around the fact of how you build your roster and your roster construction because, like I said earlier, Brock Bowers is a guy I want to absolutely play at all costs, but I want to have that contingency plan in place if he's not able to go and build my roster accordingly and smartly so that I don't feel as burned by the fact that if I do play him and he does not play, my whole rest of my lineup isn't blown up in my face and my matchup out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. But let me just say this: there's two other things I want to say, two little avenues that you might want to approach if you do want to stick with Bowers here. Number one, if Michael Mayer is available, maybe
Oh,
try to grab him. You
mhm.
know what I mean? That could be, at least it gives you something, right? So I will say that. So you could have a little bit of an ace up your sleeve. I'm not saying Michael Mayer is going to produce like Juwan Johnson produced, but that still would give you somebody, and they're more than likely, going to be on the waiver wire, Michael Mayer. And the other thing I want to say here is if you have a guy like Darnell Mooney in a flex and you don't love it, maybe you could pull Bowers down to the flex, put Juwan in the tight end
Mm.
spot, and then you could just wait. You could wait until Monday night. So, couple ways to get creative there, right? So you don't have to get dragged into just having to do something, right? That gives you two other options. So, I think that would really help. He says new to fantasy advice and is much appreciated. No, we appreciate you, man. You
Mhm.
can tune in with us anytime. Let's chat about it. Help. That's what we're here to do. We like to talk it. We like to help, and we like to try to help people win. So, them are a couple things, couple ways you could approach it. And if you're not in the Discord, Curly Headed Fox, if you would like the link, if you do use Discord, let us know. We talk over there all the time. You can post it right in the tabs to say, hey, what would you guys do in this situation? It's a handy tool because you have access to us, other people that have been around the block when it comes to fantasy football, and everyone's willing to give a lend a helping hand. And it's just a great community. So if you're interested in that, just drop it and we'll make sure you get the link for sure. Just want to share that with you as well if you ain't already in the Discord. But let's go into what I like to call the dreaded sits to
Mm.
Shara. The dreaded sit category here for week 2. We got to start it off here with the quarterbacks, and we're going to come over here to me. There's a couple different options you could go here with this week. There was a couple guys I was seriously looking at, but when you want to talk bad, it didn't get it much worse than what we seen last week. And, I'm going right back to the well here, and I hate to do it because I love the kid, but I got to sit down CJ Stroud this week going up against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I did not like what I seen from CJ Stroud and a lot of these Houston Texans assets. We talked about that to
Mhm.
share, right? Like we talked about that a lot in the Discord with people. It's just going to be a rough, rocky, bumpy year. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I still think there's a lot of value here with some of these guys from a dynasty perspective. Remember, dynasty is a marathon, not a sprint. So if you're in a dynasty league, CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, there's still some good wealth here for dynasty assets down the road. But for 2025, it don't look good. This offensive line looks terrible. The Rams got after CJ Stroud. He did nothing spectacular, nothing impressive, nothing that sat there and gave you any hope that it could really get better. Now, I understand that the Rams pass rush, you could make the arguments maybe a little bit better than what the Bucs can bring to the table, but this is still a team that's the tops of their division, usually Tampa Bay. It's going to be a tough matchup for the kid. And it's heartbreaking to me because I like CJ Stroud. I just think that 70% of this isn't really his fault at this point. But I mean, you got to throw the dice and see where they land. And right now, it ain't looking good. I could see him like maybe he gets bailed out by a touchdown, but you got to remember he really offers. As Bob said, he's mainly a pocket pass. Relying on that, and you can't get it. It kills your fantasy value. So, and I think it's going to be that way all 2025. I mean, really, he might have a couple games where he breaks out here and there, but you're really taking a risk and starting him in them situations. But go ahead and give me CJ Stroud to maybe get 12 points this week. I don't love it. I think he could be someone that could easily lose you a week this week. No disrespect to the player. I still think he holds a lot of dynasty weight. But as far as redraft fantasy goes or just playing fantasy this year, I'm not really interested in starting Stroud that much. And I think I'm not going to really be swayed off that opinion unless we see big changes. I don't know how you feel, Teixeira, but he's getting to the territory of where it's going to be hard to really look at him and say he's a startable asset much this year, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more with that pick. I'm too leery with the offensive scheme and the lack of running game in that offensive line. Like we talked about before, like the player ability. Like I still believe in him. I'm still in on him and holding him as a dynasty asset. But I'm definitely pivoting from him if I can. If I have like the Drake May or the Dak Prescott or one of these other quarterbacks that we talked about earlier that has higher upside, because I just don't see the upside this week against the Buccaneers. I don't think if it becomes a boat race, they are able to keep up with the passing attack of Baker Mayfield and those pass receiving options. I think this could be one of those matchups where it's kind of like you have to take it for what it is at face value, and it's a very bad matchup for CJ Stroud going. I believe they're playing in Tampa Bay, so going on the road after facing the Rams in their building, going all the way across country to play the Buccaneers in their building, and with the lack of personnel and just the vibes, the momentum coming out of Houston, it's really feeling like it's going to be a slump of a game for CJ Stroud, and I feel more comfortable taking risks elsewhere in my lineup, like a Trevor Lawrence or something like that, where there's some upside because you're playing a really bad defense, and which sucks because like I want to root for like Jaden Higgins and Nico and those guys, but like it just the math isn't adding up, and I just want to avoid that sort of risk and that variance in my lineup, especially at my quarterback position if it's a one quarterback league. Now, super flex, I mean, if you don't have any better options, I fine if you have to settle playing with Stroud in your super flex spot because he doesn't provide any mobility or rushing upside, but you're at least hoping for a couple touchdowns and lack of turnovers and mistakes that he experienced last week against the Rams, and he's a very dangerous play, kind of a mine waiting to go off, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be tough for double digits. Let me just say that. Coolio's here. Coolio,
Yay.
it's nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're well. Hey, we got the big win last week, man. Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully we get another big win this week. So, and I know Coolio. I know he's out there on the West Coast, and I know he's up there in BC. So he probably deals with a lot of Seahawks fans. So let me say this, Coolio. We got your back. You just dial that 412 area code and the Steel City Mafia will be there, my friend. But we're going to come back over to Teixeira. Teixeira, I sit down CJ Stroud. It kills me. Sometimes it kills me to do this because I like some of these guys, but I think it's going to be a rough road, like I said. But we're going to come to you. Quarterback, you're going to be sitting down.
This one
Who's it
might
going
be
to be?
spicy. This one might be a bold take, but my eyes saw something last week that I was really impressed by and was really got hopes and glimpse for. And then I looked and I saw what's on the horizon, and I don't like what I see on the horizon for this quarterback going this week. And I am sitting Daniel Jones. I think he's going to run into a buzzsaw against this Broncos defense. You got Patrick Surtain playing on most likely your top target and Michael Pittman. And then you got your only option left over is Tyler Warren, which I think will have a moderate game, but I don't see that ceiling there for Daniel Jones like he had last week. They're going to play because we know Cam Ward is a active and he's a mobile quarterback and he's got that athleticism. Daniel Jones does too, but I think the Broncos defense is going to be wise to that and know about his tendencies and his ability to get outside the pocket. And I don't think they're going to allow him to do that in a fashion that provides ceiling points numbers in your lineups. Now, he's kind of like a borderline toss up, like in a super flex league. If he's the second quarterback, I might play him just for that upside of that rushing ability. Or if he falls in and vultures a touchdown, like we saw him do a couple of times last week at the goal line from Jonathan Taylor. But it's a sit of the week because it's just tread with caution because your eyes saw one thing and you have hopes and glimpses, but then the reality and on paper, when you actually look at it and break down the film, how the Broncos were able to take care of business on defense and keep Cam Ward contained and is keeping his pass catching options relatively irrelevant and duds for us for fantasy, that I can see that foreshadowing of potential outcomes for Daniel Jones this week. Like, by all means, I don't think he's going to have a dud or busty like type week, but if we're trying to compare his stats from week 1 going into week 2, I just don't see him getting that ceiling or reaching that potential despite having great receiving options as Michael Pittman and Tyler Warren. I think he's going to have like a perfect storm kind of a game or a slip up by the Broncos, and that's asking a lot. And I don't see it happening. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to keep Daniel Jones on my bench and wait and see. Now, I will say this, DJ, if he somehow miraculously overperforms or outdoes it this week against the Broncos defense, that will lend to have some sort of conversation for us rest of the season of how we view Daniel Jones and what we see of him going forward in our lineups and what we want to do with him. And as far as a trade for target in leagues, if you're like desperate at quarterback and you're a contender willing to make moves to try to acquire a Daniel Jones for relatively affordable prices before he potentially booms, because this week will probably be his hardest test in the first quarter of the season. And if he handles it well, I mean, it attests to having to consider him being a viable option for us in Dynasty.
Yeah, and I think you made a lot of good, fair points there to share. On the From Whistle to Whistle show, Ty saying maybe this isn't a
Mhm.
fluke right now. Like, I know, don't hear what he's not saying. Like, I think it could be very tough, you know, going into a game like this. And he did say, look, I see him more as a quarterback 3. Maybe you could plug and play as a quarterback 2 sometimes. And basically everything you laid out here, right? Like, this is a tough matchup, and he's always going to be as good as the guys around him. So it's going to be tough for Pittman one-on-one, like you said, with Surtain, Warren, rookie tight end. I mean, they got a lot of decent, solid, good players on that Denver Broncos defense. So really could slow Daniel Jones down. And look, seeing is believing, right? Like, we need more proof. And like you said, if we see it more, then you give the leash a little bit more,
Mhm.
to go. I mean, like you could say here, we just go a little bit further, give the leash a little bit longer, right? Like, and you're right, we got to see it. And this is a big test for him. But let's just say this: if Daniel Jones comes out, keeps this game
Mhm.
competitive, and he can somehow get 16 fantasy points, you still got to feel
Mhm.
really good about that, right? I mean, you really do if you have him rostered. So that is a lot of fair, good points. And we have Coolio here saying, in and out, keep it cool. Up to date on Jason, man. You're the man. As like I said before, we'll be talking in the Discord, doing a little Steelers chatter for sure this week. But let's go into the running back sits. Here we go, Teixeira. There's a lot of putrid things out there in the running back pool after week 1. I mean, there were some disappointments, some real letdowns, guys we kind of predicted. And I'm going to continue saying it, right? Like, I'm going to sit down this week Kenneth Walker going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look,
Oh, yeah.
I know that a lot of people were getting sucked in like a big straw to like the fact, not so much Kenneth Walker anymore, because he proved us right, a lot of us here on this network, what we seen this past Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers, being the hit or miss, the injuries, just a guy that's not super efficient and get as many dynasty as he could, right? But I think a lot of people are saying, okay, here we go. The Steelers gave up all these yards to Breece Hall. Yes, it was a problem. And yes, I do think that this defense is a little old and a little overpriced. But let me just say this: they still have a lot of pride. And the fact that they
Mhm.
got steamrolled by Brees Hall and company last week, I don't think they're going to be in a very good mood this week. Let me say this. And I will say the fact that, you look at this with the Seattle Seahawks, and I talked to Slim. He's a Seahawks fan, right? Like, we love him. He's a cherished entity here at Dynasty DNA. He's like a family member to all of us. But this week, it's personal because we got a Seahawks Steeler game going on.
Mhm.
You wait to the Dynasty DNA morning show. I'm sure we'll be back and forth on that one. And I can't wait for that. Taking Slim down in the Discord show. He could take it, though. He's a good sport. But let me just say this. He said it, and I trust his opinion. He's like, I watched the game. Zach Charbonnet looked like the better running back. And we've said that. We said it. We said it. How many more times is it going to take to really get Kenneth Walker off the field just a little bit more? I get he's got the home run hitting tendencies, but I think we could see more of a dose from Charbonnet at some point. I think if the Seahawks are going to have success running the ball this week, it's going to be a better fit for them to run Charbonnet against a team like the Steelers than it would be for Kenneth Walker. And I will say this, I do expect us to bounce back, play the run a little bit better. And I just don't expect big things out of Kenneth Walker again this week. Like, I could see 10 points. I mean, I could see 10 points. I think maybe he could get there, but I think that's your best case scenario. I'm going to predict more like 8. I think he gets like 8 points this week. And he's just someone I don't trust. We all really don't trust. And I'm just fed up with it, man. If you have him and you have any other viable options, go that route, right? Like, I feel better, and I'm not even a fan, but I feel better about Jaylen Warren this week than I do Kenneth Walker. So what does that tell you? So I don't love it. I think a lot of people are thinking, seeing what happened last week, they're going to get Kenneth Walker going. I just have my doubts. I'm going to bet on history. I'm going to bet on the fact that I know this player. I'm going to bet on the fact that I trust Slim's judgment on the fact that he thinks Zach Charbonnet is running the ball better, and he just is kind of fed up with Kenneth Walker too. So I'm going to sit Kenneth Walker down. I don't know how you feel about it, Teixeira. Are you with me on that?
I'm absolutely with you. I'm willing to take that torch of yours on Kenneth Walker and go a little bit further, reaching over the finish line. And I think it's more likely he gets 6 or 7 points. I feel like he could get set in the second half and just they run the Charbonnet show. But both those backs, I'm not high on this week, him or Charbonnet. I don't think I have Charbonnet get more than 9 or 10 points. I just think that the Steelers are going to have it locked down as far as the running game go and try to have Sam Darnold beat them with his arm, then try to have the running backs of the Seahawks expose them and run through all over them. I think that this game is going to be close and it's going to be put a lot of pressure on, and I think it's going to come down to Sam Darnold's arm in the clutch and the pass defense of the Steelers standing on their head or bending and not breaking and keeping that. I just don't have good feeling about either of those running backs, especially Kenneth Walker this week 2.
So Teixeira took my thoughts and took it one step further. I love it, man. I'm with you on that. We'll see what happens. We're really going to talk and pick Slim's brain if it goes badly yet again. And Coolio said, going to be Ken not walking, crawling off the field. And he also said, Sharps look better. I agree, Coolio, with you 100%, man. I think a lot of us football fans just get that. Hopefully the Seahawks do. Maybe they can get this energized a little bit. And maybe they do if the Steelers do beat them, they go 0-2. Maybe they go that route, right? Maybe they definitely start to turn that direction. But we're going to come back over here to you, Teixeira. We're going to talk running backs. Running back sit for you in week 2.
Like you said, touched on it earlier, you go off history because it's still too early in the season to have any concrete data to have on these running backs and try to form a solid opinion on it. I'm going to go back to the Super Bowl here, and I'm going to take Isaiah Pacheco. It looks like the Eagles just have the Chiefs' number in their running game, and I just don't. Sort of like you with Kenneth Walker, I just don't see that high ceiling or that high hopes with Pacheco and him being able to bust one or have a big solid game. Like, I think his floor could be as much as 5 or 6 points and his ceiling maybe 10 or 11, but that's because he falls in the end zone and he gets either hyper targeted on short passes from Patrick Mahomes or he just gets so many carries that it just accumulates up and is close to a 100-yard game as possible. But in reality, Isaiah Pacheco is not a running back that I'm trying to force into my lineups or even try to flex this week because I feel like Jalen Carter is going to be back. That Eagles defense is going to have more of a lockdown on the run game. They're not going to let Isaiah Pacheco do some sort of Javonte Williams show on them from week 1. And it's a very much like Kenneth Walker where I only want to play Pacheco if I absolutely have to and break glass. And I don't even like doing that. And I think this week is going to call for a lot of Mahomes throwing the ball. And he doesn't have many passing options left over from week 1. And I think that they're going to have to keep up with the Eagles. And I don't see it coming from the running game. I just don't see an outcome where you're happy with starting Isaiah Pacheco at the end of the day if you have to start him.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, you mentioned it. Like, another player that especially like everyone pretty much associated with our network was not high
Mhm.
on, right? And including me. Like I remember last year after the season, some people were still getting seconds for him. I'm like, just ship him
Yep.
off. Like, and I'm not saying he's not going to have a couple decent games. I mean, I think that that's in the cards, but I mean, just for the fact that, look, I mean, if you have him, this is going to be the end. This is going to be the
Mhm.
end of the run, unfortunately. And they're going to look another direction after this season. One thing about Kansas City, they look a little vulnerable right now. They need Rashee Rice back very badly, and they need more big play potential in that offense because they just don't have it, right? Travis Kelce can give them a spark every once in a while, but he's not prime Travis Kelce anymore. I mean, they don't have anybody on the outside that's really exciting, and they don't have that superstar running back. So they're really, really hurting, and they need big time play potential. And you're right, Pacheco's just another guy. And I think this is the end after this year. And I'm with you. I am not starting him whatsoever this week. Like he was actually on my candidates to make my Dabble Fantasy Sit of the Week.
Ooh.
So he's someone he's definitely someone I'm not looking at either to share. So I'm on board with you on that. But let's hop into the receivers. Receivers, we're going to be sitting here for week 2. You know, I always say it. I call it, it's a disease a little bit of the time as far as fantasy football goes. I call it the Cleveland Cooties. And, you know, I will give Cleveland a little bit of love last week. They did take Cincinnati to task. That defense isn't very good, but we kind of expected them to play the Bengals a little bit tougher, and they did, right? They did give
Mhm.
them everything they had. But this Baltimore Ravens defense isn't the Cincinnati Bengals defense. Let's just get that first and clear foremost. So I'm going to be sitting down Jerry Jeudy this week, going up against the Baltimore Ravens defense. Now, look, I said this about Jerry Jeudy. He was a player that I was never especially high on. I thought maybe this would be a good time to sell high after last season. Because look, I mean, you got a new quarterback coming in Joe Flacco that he did not play with last year. And we know that you got to be able to build a rapport with guys. I mean, things change. Quarterbacks see different things. I mean, it seems like to me he's kind of the odd man out. And then you take into the fact that you're going up against this defense, Nate Wiggins. If he plays in the slot, he's going to get Marlon Humphreys. But I mean, he's just a guy that I don't trust this week. And we talk about the Cleveland carousel. That's another thing. Who's it going to be, right? It's just like pick a number on the bingo card because it could be anybody. I mean, it was Harold Fannin last week, a little bit of Dylan Sampson. Who would have predicted that? So I'm not playing that bingo game with Cleveland, and I'm not playing Jerry Jeudy. I think that giving him credit last year, he showed a lot of fight, a lot of toughness. I love that. I love that players. I give him credit. But this team, you can't trust consistently to keep things consistent. And the fact, too, that this defense with Baltimore is just too much. I can't trust them in a flex. I can't trust them in a wide receiver 2 position. I think the only way he saves them is if he scores some kind of fluke touchdown if you start him in a matchup. I think that's the only way he provides any kind of fantasy value. And even if he does that, I don't see him getting over 12 points. So I don't think you're missing out on too much. Go ahead and sit Jerry Jeudy down this week. I feel comfortable with it. Ravens coming off a loss. Derrick Henry mad. Not a good recipe for Cleveland coming into week 2. I don't know how you feel about that, Cheryl.
Absolutely, I'm all on board on that because it's becoming the who's who at where Flacco is doing in that offense. Could be Njoku, could be Fannin Jr., like you said, all those good points. And, I mean, if you absolutely had to, I could see someone in a scenario flexing him and hoping for the high upside of it being a competitive game. But it it bodes well to, I think, the Ravens having a better game in the secondary this week, and they just tend to play the Browns a little bit better, a little bit stronger. He's just, I think he's one of those plays where I'm sitting there looking at him in my lineup, and I'm like, all right, the reality is I could get a goose egg here, or I could get 20 points. And I'm not willing to bank on the fact that the Ravens are going to have two losses to start the year. And I think they're really going to shut down Joe Flacco and really create pressure and get to him. And I'd rather if I'm going for receiving options at the Browns this week, I like Tillman in the red zone to get if they get that close to get those red zone targets. And I like Harold Fannin Jr. and David Njoku to get those small along the line of scrimmage targets. And I think Judy's just the odd man out because I think when plays break down, Joe Flacco is going to be looking more closer to the line of scrimmage, and I can see a Dylan Sampson kind of salvage game where he has himself a decent kind of a day being the pass catching option.
Yeah, and Colio says Tillman way cheaper, draft cost, even waivers, potentially higher ceiling. And I agree. I'm not a Tillman fan either, but Coolio's right. Like, if you're going to play the Cleveland carousel, instead of putting in a quarter, put in a penny, right? Like, we're talking Harold Fannin, we're talking Dylan Sampson, Cedric Tillman. Like, you got them guys cheap. So, like, if you're going to ride the Cleveland carousel, make sure this is one of my new quotes: put in the penny, not the quarter. So, we're going to come back over to Teixeira. Teixeira, we're going to hop into your world here. Wide receiver sit for week 2. Who are you bringing the axe down on?
I want to take the usual suspect in Jalen Waddle, but I ain't going to pick on him twice in 2 weeks. Man, that's tough because there's a lot on my list. I think I'm going to go spicy here. I'm going to sit Nico Collins this week. It's going to be hard. This is spicy,
man.
but I just don't like the vibes, the momentum. Like, I'm at this point with that Texans offense where I am treading with high caution. Like, I need to see it first before I can play it confidently in my lineups. And for where I'm putting Nico in my lineup, my wide receiver 1, I don't think I feel comfortable this week on the road again playing against that Buccaneers defense that kind of held Penix respectively well and not let Drake London got hurt. But what I mean is I think that at home, the Buccaneers are going to play a little bit stronger, a little bit better. And I think that for CJ Stroud, he needs to have time in the pocket to get the ball to Nico Collins. And if he doesn't have that time by that line giving it to him, it's going to be harder to see a ceiling for Nico this week. I think he could be a good floor play, like a closer to 10 points. But for my wide receiver 1, I want the 20 plus games. And I just don't see that coming from Nico this week. I think it's more of a closer to him being a flex play. And I don't know. I think the Texans offense just has a stink about him right now that I don't want to have anything to do with.
And I swear to God, Teixeira, in my mind, I was thinking about him as a sit as well. So
I feel better
about
that. That was a little spicy.
No. I mean, that is spicy, but that's what wins and loses games sometimes, right? And like, honestly, that in my head I was thinking that, like, maybe just sit even Nico Collins down. Look, I get it. Like, maybe you don't have anybody else, and when you're in that situation, I don't blame you. Like, I mean, sometimes you got to play a player like that, even though you have a bad feeling about it, right? It's just like, you got to throw up, but you haven't yet, right? I mean, like, you're laying there, it's like, oh, it's coming, and then, yep, there it is. Like, I think that could be a situation with Nico Collins. And if you're in that situation, that's terrible. But if you are blessed with depth, if you have some guys that are performing and he's underperforming, I'm with Teixeira. I'm not going to hesitate here. I mean, I'll sit him down. I mean, last year he kind of took a step back anyway. And like we talked about this Texans offense, it could go from bad to worst. So I do not blame you one iota, Teixeira, and I give you credit for having the guts to go that route. So I like that call. I think that's very gutsy, and I think that if I had Nico Collins in some rosters where I had some depth, I would consider it. I really would consider it. I'm not saying I would in every league, but if I am really blessed with depth, I would consider it. So I'm glad you brought that up. But let's go to the tight ends. Tight end, I'll be sitting down, and I'm going to make you really happy with this one. And Wiz is going to be somewhere probably kicking his keyboard and throwing his chair out the window in Alaska. But I got to sit down Colston Loveland this week going up against Teixeira's Detroit Lions. Now, let me just say this. Still a lot of growth has to happen with the Chicago Bear offense. Like, I'm not one of the people who are just going to completely abandon ship. Even Teixeira said it's going to take time. I mean, I think so many people expect it to be great, right? Like, I was more level expectations. Like, I thought it was going to be better this year, but I still didn't think it was going to be amazing. I'm still there. But Caleb's got to play better. Missed a lot of open receivers, bad accuracy issues. And one thing we know about Detroit, they come off a loss. This is 2 division games for them. They have to win this game. I expect Dan Campbell to respond. I think this defense is going to play up the task. And, I love Brian Branch, players like that who are going to be in contention to be guarding people like Colston Loveland. And it's tough for rookie tight ends on top of it usually. I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's one of the toughest positions to come in and have instant success in the NFL because there's so much responsibility attached to that position. But I mean, this team has a long way to go yet. I still think it's going to get better. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but I think Detroit wins this game. And I think that Colston Loveland, you look at it. I mean, I think DJ Moore can be a factor at some point, right? Like, it's possible. I think that, maybe even Roma Dunze can get a little bit involved. Maybe even we see a little bit of Cole Kmet, but this Luther Burden, Colston Loveland pairing, it's going to take time to really find weight. And I just don't see it happening against Detroit. I'm predicting, under 10 points. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think a lot of people were hoping for that high ceiling, but it's a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup coming against a team that I still really like and think is still a solid team. And there's a lot of good players scheming against them. So I think it's going to be a rough week for Colston Loveland. To share, this defense better than anybody. I think just some of the key cogs and components you have in that defense could make it tough for these tight ends for Chicago.
Absolutely. I think what this Colston Loveland experiment is just it's this shiny new flashy toy that everyone wants to believe in and think that is going to be all great and mighty. But the fact of the matter is that there's 4 other options ahead of him in that offense. I think that Ben Johnson, if he's smart, he's going to rely on the receiving ability of DJ Moore first and foremost to extend drives and keep the plays going. And that Roma Dunze is going to play that flashy playmaking X factor role this weekend against the Lions and try to catch them sleeping. And then after that, it's just a plethora of gadgety kind of toys for play with of DeAndre Swift out of the backfield if Kyle Mungai makes an appearance or Luther Burden decides to wake up, because I feel like Colston Loveland is really the guy that he's battling with to get targets and get his eye from in that offense from Caleb is Luther Burden. And he played a lot of snaps last week, and Cole Kmet's still in his way. Like, I don't think that Cole Kmet's a superstar by any means, but I also don't think he's a slouch at all. And I think he's still respectively earned that starting job for the Chicago Bears because he's a reliable pass catching option. He's a deep threat over the middle, and he's been notoriously an Achilles heel or a thorn in the side of the Detroit Lions. He just somehow finds a way to get those big plays for the Bears, and it's a pain in the ass to talk about, but it's the fact of the matter is that Cole Kmet is probably the biggest threat for the Lions this weekend as far as in the passing game goes, because I think, like you said, there's a lot of assets for the Lions to lock down those more volatile players in the lineup outside of DJ Moore. And I think that for Colston Loveland to have a relevant game this weekend, he has to find the end zone. If he doesn't find the end zone, I think it could be an easy for him. I don't think he's going to have the volume or the wherewithal having a start or putting it confidently. Like, if I have him, which I don't, TJ, I don't have any Bears, but I wouldn't feel warm and fuzzy and comfortable about playing him in a division rival after coming off that tough loss.
Yeah, and you made a lot of good points about everything that's in front of them. And really, on top of the fact that it's a very tough matchup, that's still there, and that's still a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's just someone you can't trust right now until proven otherwise. I think we can agree on that. Now, we have Coolio asking, don't want to interrupt the flow. Can we start sick questions during the show? Absolutely. You have one, brother. You shoot it over. We'll let Teixeira give his tight end, and then once you give us yours, we'll answer it. So we'll wait for his response. But Teixeira, tight end, you're going to be sitting down here for week 2. Who is it going to be?
Oh, man. Fool me once, shame on me. I'm not falling for it, TJ. I don't care what he did last week. I'm not dipping my toes in that pool. I'm not doing it. I'll leave that for other people in the specific state of Iowa for that. And I'm Kyle Pitts against that Vikings defense this week. Doing it. Brian Flores, do whatever that was last week that he did to the Buccaneers. I think that he's going to be locked down and he's not going to have a boom game. He's going to be a bust this week. I can confidently say that. And I think that he's probably going to be the 4th or 5th option in that passing attack for the Falcons. Listen, the Minnesota Vikings did a dip against Cole Kmet and Colson, made Caleb Williams try to beat him on the outside and not give up anything in the middle of the field. And that's where Kyle Pitts is mainly making his bread and butter, is those through the middle across the field kind of catches. And I don't see Andrew Van Ginkel or any of those linebackers letting him have any space at all. And what Kyle Pitts needs is space and time to catch the ball because he's a very low contested catch pass catcher. It just if he's got any pressure on him, he's proven to show that he will fold in those situations. And I don't think Michael Penix is going to have enough time in the pocket to rely on Kyle Pitts this week. I think he's going to have a lot of pressure. It's going to be a big wake up call for the Falcons on the road. And I think that in order for them to beat the Vikings is not from a safe, more conservative route utilizing Kyle Pitts. It's going to take like a Darnell Mooney or a Drake London type game and them utilizing the hell out of Bijan Robinson. Like I see this being a huge Bijan Robinson game and a super feeding of him. And I just don't see a formula or the math adding out where Kyle Pitts is a tight end one this week, or even like it was nice to see. I mean, even a blind was Bob say a blind nut, yeah, whatever
Blind
it
squirrel
is. Like
finds another.
so, and that was his nut. He found it last week. It's not happening against the Vikings. That Vikings defense is seriously dangerous, especially playing at home in front of that crowd.
Yep. Oh, I agree with you. And honestly, I'm staying away from Kyle Pitts too. I mean, like, look, I think Bob mentioned this as well. Like the good games he's had, a lot of them has come against Tampa Bay. So like that isn't much of a surprise. Like
Mhm.
he does well for whatever reason against that team. So I'll give him credit on that stat as well. But yeah, I mean, he's someone that's just been super inconsistent through the years. And we talked about it. We're going back to trends and patterns from last season. I just don't trust him. And I think you'd be crazy to trust him. Look, if you don't have anyone else, again, I understand that. But if you have some of these other premier guys or guys that you like Tyler Warren or Kyle Pitts, I'm starting Tyler Warren. I mean, no questions asked.
Mhm.
Like, even against a tough Denver defense, I'm still going to trust Tyler Warren in that scenario. So, I mean, give me some of them guys over Kyle Pitts. So I'm with you, Slim. But let's go over to the Dabble Fantasy start of the week and the Dabble Fantasy sit of the week, brought to you by Dabble Fantasy. Dabble Fantasy, big time sponsor here for Dynasty DNA. We love it. Hot new daily up and coming daily fantasy app. You can join for use the promo code DNA4 and you can join and they will give you a free $10 in free play. You can't beat that. And why not take a chance, get a free $10 bet there from Dabble Fantasy by using that promo code DNA4. And we all love it. A lot of us use it. It's a great app. Go check it out. But here we go. Dabble Fantasy start of the week, Dabble Fantasy sit of the week. I'm going to start with my Dabble Fantasy start of the week. And it's a guy that he found the paint last week, had a nice game, but so many people still just hating. And it's only going to get better because, if you go in there and you check his wardrobe, he has one of those TJ player jackets, and it's definitely going to be Chase Brown this week for me. Dabble Fantasy start of the week going up against the lowly, bad, cellar dwelling Jacksonville Jaguar defense. And, I expect to bounce back from Cincinnati this week. A lot of their offensive assets are going to do well. Give me Chase Brown this week for 24 big ones against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ooh.
2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns for Chase Brown this week. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling good with some dump off passes, some good amount of rushing yards. I think he's going to be a top 3 finisher this week at the running back position. That's one of my bold takes. Give me Chase Brown University. I like that call, but we won't spend a ton of time on it to share because I think you were with me on that, but let's come to your Dabble Fantasy start of the week. Who do you have for
He
us?
wears a jacket of yours. I'm going with Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's going to have an explosive game against that Bengals secondary. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to lean on his guy, and he's going to hyper target him, and he's going to be the beneficiary. He's not going to get a rushing touchdown this week. He's going to get a minimum of 1 scoring touchdown. I have a ceiling of 23 points for him, and I have a floor of 16. I think he's going to be one of the top options at wide receiver this week. I can see him finishing as high as a top 3 wide receiver. And I trust the ability. I trust the talent that he has. And if he is going to be able to do it on anybody this year, I know it was kind of disappointing with the Panthers and how bad that defense was. That ain't going to happen this week. He's going to take advantage of another bad pass defense in the Bengals. And, if it becomes a shootout, I think Trevor Lawrence, that's going to be his top guy. And then he's going to have to just pepper him and feed him. You know, and we know that Brian Thomas Jr. is capable of having those really high top elite games. And I think this could be his breakout game of the season where he just explodes.
He's due. Some say
Mhm.
overdue. And I love that call, Teixeira. You're right. I mean, a lot of people let down last week. I mean, it happens. It's still early in the season. This guy's still a freak of a talent. I expect big things as well. I love that call out. Michael Goldfield asked, Jay Williams or Henderson? I'm going to assume that's Javonte Williams or Travion Henderson.
Mhm.
Give me Travion Henderson this week. I don't think Javonte's a bad play going up against the Giants, but if the Giants do have one strength, it is their front seven, right?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, you look at that team, that's how they're structurally built. I mean, Lightning, it's going to be hard Lightning to strike twice for Javonte Williams. If you
Mhm.
don't get them all in touchdowns, he's a 5 to 8 point guy at best. So I look at
Mhm.
Travion Henderson, first game, 5 yards a carry, should touch the ball more. Hopefully, Vrabel gives him more leeway to do that. And I expect more pass catching. And look, what did he have last week? 12 points, rookie debut, and he was
Mhm.
only on the field X amount. I love that. Like, to me, it only can go up. And they're playing the terrible Miami Dolphins. So give me Travion. You with me on that, Teixeira?
Absolutely, absolutely. If he could do what he did last week on half the usage against the Raiders, I think this is the game that Vrabel, if he wants to get a little cute or a little bit, trickery or tricky, he can deploy Henderson in a more of a 60-40 split and give him more opportunities. I mean, I get the volume with Javante. You like it. He's the guy that's going to be the lead back there, and you're going to have that security of opportunities. But the likelihood of him cashing in twice or even once this week against that Giants front four, I it's a tall ask, and I'd rather take the high upside ceiling of a Henderson than banking on some sort of floor with Javante. Like, it's going to be really tough for Javante to put up numbers that Henderson has potentially the capability of doing this week.
Yep, I'm with you on that. And we have Coolio saying Captain Canada Chase. Yes, sir. That's what we're going with. 100%. I'm with you on that. But we have our Dabble Fantasy Sit of the Week coming back over here to me. I do this a lot during the show, and you'll guys hear me do this more throughout the season. I'm going to sit down my Dabble Fantasy Sit of the Week. Anyone wearing a teal and orange jersey for the Miami Dolphins except for Devon Achane. I think he's the only person I would play in that putrid mess right now. If I have any Dolphins, I don't feel good about this. I understand it's a good matchup, but Indy was supposed to be a pretty solid matchup too. And now you're going up against New England, division game. Usually it's a little bit tougher, lower scoring type affair between these two teams. I don't like any Dolphins outside Devon Achane. So I'm sitting down the entire Miami Dolphins fantasy asset cabinet except for Devon Achane. So that's where I'm going with for my Dabble Fantasy Sit of the Week. Teixeira, I'm coming over here to you. As you can see, I get bold with these sometimes because it's like
Yeah, that caught me off guard.
it's this bad. It's this bad. So when we keep doing these shows, you'll get more used to it. I mean, when I come out of left field with some of these, but we're going to come back
Hmm.
to you. Dabble Fantasy Sit of the Week. Who do you have?
I have for my sit of the week. I'm going to, um, man, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go with Sam Darnold as my sit of the week. I just don't see him like we saw what he did against the 49ers last week, and I wasn't impressed by it at all. And I think that it doesn't bode well the same for this week against the Steelers. Like, I know he hyper targeted JSN. He had a really good game, like an excellent game. You love to see that, but I think that TJ Watt gets to him a minimum of 3 times this weekend. I think Sam Darnold gets sacked 3 times, and he has the potential of at least throwing 1 pick. Like, he might be my interception thrower of the week this week, but we'll find out on Sunday when you guys tune in the pregame show who my pick is. But I don't see sunshine and roses for Sam Darnold, and I think it's one of those games where the pressure will be on, and I think ghosts could be on the horizon for that guy.
We'll have to hear that song playing again, but you're right. Like, I don't expect big things from Sam Darnold. I mean, as Bob said, what they really expect him to do is turn around, and put it in these running backs' guts more than anything. Get JSN involved as much as you can, but not take too many chances. And I mean, it is going to be tough. I do think the Steelers defense is going to be a little bit more angry this week, as we talked about. And I'm on board with you on that. I think that's a great sit to Shara. I mean, honestly, 12 to 10 points. I mean, I think you really lucky if he even got that at this point. I mean, if he does do more, that's great, but I don't have high hopes. We have Chris asking here, Austin, Cooper Kupp, or Cedric Tillman. So we have Calvin Austin, Cooper Kupp, or Cedric Tillman. Tashara, I'll let you open this up. Our last start sit question here for week 2. Who do you like out of this group if you had to play one?
If I had to play one, I like Tillman just because, like I said, I would go off of earlier. I got DK Metcalf as my start of the week. I don't think that Calvin Austin's a threat. I think that was kind of a flash of the pan game. Yeah, he's a cute story, like his potential, but I don't see him replicating or coming close to the numbers that he did last week. Cooper Kupp, I think, is the victim of Sam Darnold. It's going to be really tough to get in those modes where he's the security blanket for Darnold. I think there'll be too much pressure not to have time to get the ball out to him. And I think if Sam Darnold replicates what he did last week, it'll be one of those cases where it's JSN and everybody else is irrelevant, which is unfortunate. And Tillman's just out of circumstance. I think if Flacco finds anybody in the end zone this weekend, it's going to be Tillman because he's that big body target. And I think that he has the highest upside, potentially having a splash play this week out of those 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is tough. This is very tough. I think Calvin Austin is out of the question for me as well. Like, I mean, you're really, really hoping for a touchdown with Calvin Austin. If you don't get it, you're bare bones. Cedric Tillman, I agree with a lot of what Tashara said. It's just what we talked about, the Cleveland Carousel. I think I lean Cooper Kupp here.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because the Steelers, Joey Porter Jr. might not be available. There could be a little bit thin in the secondary. I don't think that Sam Darnold's going to be able to sling the rock all over the place. But usually Cooper Kupp, those slotty type guys kill the Steelers. So I could see him getting just off yards and catches. Like, I could see Cooper Kupp having a game where he has 70 catches for 80 yards, right? And if you get that, that's really good. Like, I mean, yeah, it's not going to help Darnold's stat line a ton, but that could really propel Cooper Kupp. So don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't like Sam Darnold. I agree with Tashara, but I mean, just based off my knowledge of the Steelers and what they give up, I mean, look, you got to play Cooper Kupp at some point. I think I will give him a chance here based off that, but it's close. Tillman's a close second. I think you could flip a coin for me, depending on what you like. I do think, as Tashara said, there could be a little bit more of a potential ceiling for Tillman than Kupp, just based off of a touchdown, a bigger play. We know Kupp isn't as explosive anymore, but I just think I would lean the floor just a little bit with Kupp. But very close, very good question too. So very great episode, guys. I really enjoyed this. We're going to be back again for week 3. Now, guys, I'm telling you right now, the Dynasty DNA Network, we are cooking. We have this show, the Stardom Cinema Saturday. Slim's going to be doing the Hutchinson Huddle DFS podcast tomorrow evening. He'll be going live, and it'll be available on the podcasting network Sunday morning. So if you want some DFS needs, that's there. We have the Triple Threat podcast. We have the Tashara and my podcast that we do together, the From Whistle to Whistle show with Ty. We know how everyone knows Ty is, the comedian here at Dynasty DNA. And usually very, very accurate, but he does it in a funny way. Very knowledgeable, and he does it in a funny way. And we have, of course, the Dynasty DNA Deep Dive. So 4 to 5 shows a week. All great guys. Guys I trust with everything totally. I trust these guys with. So, guys, you got to get over there. Check that out. Make sure to check out all the great shows. And if you are listening on the podcasting network, and this show will be out tomorrow for Saturday, and you have a question, keep this in mind. I mean, we're going to be live lots of times. If Tashara is available, he'll be with me. Maybe we'll have some other people with us. I mean, you just never know, but we do it live. So if you have a question, come on and just subscribe to Dynasty DNA on YouTube. Come on, we'll be live. You can just ask us right here or join the Dynasty DNA Discord, as I mentioned. And if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Pod, Stitcher, Amazon, any of the big podcasting platforms, and you haven't yet, please follow and 5-star the show. It greatly helps, and we so appreciate it. If you are watching on YouTube and you haven't, please like and subscribe. We so appreciate that. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at DynastyDNA_. Before I close, we have a question from Coolio. I'm not going to exclude him.
Yeah.
Great member from the Discord. I seen it just pop up. We have a 12-team full PPR redraft final flex. Keenan, Pearsall, Jalen Warren. If Keenan also have Herbert on the bench for possible stack, but rolling Kyler, Marv stack at home. So, okay, so that is a tough decision. That is a very tough decision there. Final flex play for you to share. Are you going to roll with Keenan, Pearsall, or Jalen Warren? And if you go Keenan, are you going to put Herbert in with the flex for Keenan over the flex with Marv with Kyler?
Man, that is tough. I do like the Cardinals matchup this week against the Panthers. And I think I love that Herbert Keenan stack potentially, but I'm gonna err on the side of caution that lightning strikes twice and that the Chargers throw a pass heavy attack against the Charger or the Raiders. I don't think they're gonna have to do that this week. And I'm gonna lean Ricky Pearsall as the final flex spot. I'm gonna take the upside against him. Playing the Saints, I think this is just a rest success where you're gonna have a high floor play with the possibility and upside of a touchdown.
Yeah. Okay. So, Teixeira, I'm with you on this. I'm going to go with Pearsall as well. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I love Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen. And if you have them, like, Coolio's just in a kind of a tough situation here, right? Like, if you have them in any other setting, I'm firing up Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen. But I have a strange suspicion that the Chargers are going to want to try to establish the run a little bit against the Raiders this week. I said it, I think, on the Dynasty DNA deep dive. I think that we could expect a little bit better from Amari and Hampton. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not an Amari and Hampton cheerleader, but I do think it gets better. Bush, a little bit of a running presence with him. So that being said, that's why I would keep Kyler and Marv in there, and then I would go with Ricky Pearsall. I feel good enough about Pearsall. And here's the thing. Herbert could have a good game, but there's a lot of weapons in that offense. I mean, Keenan does look good. He's a little bit older. Knock on wood. Hopefully he's healthy all season, but he's had his fair share of injury troubles. So hopefully, he stays healthy. But I think I keep Kyler and Marv. I'm with Teixeira. Put Pearsall on the flex. Coolio. I'm cool with rolling with that. I don't think you're going to miss out much between Kyler and Marv and Herbert and Keenan. I think it's going to be very close between them two stacks. At worst, it's going to be very close. So I think Kyler and Marv have just a little bit more upside this week. So I love that question. That was a good one. But guys, we will sign off. I hope you're enjoying the shows. We will be back with you for Start Sit 'em Saturday for next week for week 3. But until then, we will see you guys on the next episode of